Welcome to the Millennial Network Podcast. Now your host, Coach Danny Renee.
What's up, y'all? Coach Danny Renee here, and this is the Millennial Network Podcast. Today we have Brandon here from New York, the Brandon edition. I say it right?
Yes.
Brandon repping the Brandon edition, who is a real estate broker out in New York. I know I did an episode with a broker down here in Atlanta. And if anybody knows New York, I think New York is one of the most sought after like real estate environments, or at least it was at one point. Um, Real estate out there is crazy. But anyways, how did first of all, what part of New York are you from? Because I know y'all like rep y'all areas completely
Right.
different or whatever.
I'm from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Okay.
Brooklyn.
BK? Is that y'all be saying like BK
Yeah,
or
yeah. I
something?
mean, I'll let you get away with
Is
it.
that how? I mean, I can't say it. It's like the
I
sorority
mean,
fraternity thing.
yeah. You could, BK for sure, for sure. You could abbreviate it.
Okay, so a young dude from BK, now real estate broker. Like, how did that story? Like, what created that story to where you were like, one day I want to become a real estate agent and a real estate broker?
Um, Good question. It started. I got licensed in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
One of my best friends from Staten Island. Actually, I lived in Staten Island for a long time too, maybe like a couple years, 4 years. But basically, he was actually a broker, well, a real estate agent, salesperson is the technical name, and he was just telling me like, look, at that time I was doing what I was doing, and he was like, I just saw somebody make a $40,000 check, and this is 10, 11 years ago, so I was open to it. Got my license in about 10 days, and that was it from there. I mean, it was a tough journey to this
Mm-hmm.
point, but yeah, that's what really made me want to. And I always loved just the infrastructure and the architecture in New York. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
every time my mom would take me to the city, I always imagined myself from a young boy. Imagine myself living in Manhattan and the high rises and whatnot. So I always had a love, and I still and it actually grew. My love for the city grew through doing real estate. Like anywhere I go
Nice.
now, I see the world through a lens, real estate lens.
Okay, so you said 2011. Now, so much has happened in New York just like since, I mean, for us millennials, like all we know is like, the World Trade Center 9/11. And then you have 2008, with the pretty much like the economy. And it's,
Right.
it started with real estate and a lot, in New York with investors and I mean without confusing everybody that whole issue
I make
whatever
I make
so
it simple, right? It was the subprime mortgage crisis. So basically, what
hmm
was happening was people were able to get a house without verifying the income that they were making. And one thing to always keep in mind: a mortgage is not a loan on a house. A mortgage is a loan on your income secured by your house. So the house would be collateral for the loan that this bank is extending to
whoa,
you.
whoa, whoa. Slow it down.
All right.
Hold up.
All right.
All
Give me
right, so
some
you
game.
said because that was just like wait, a mortgage is
Is
collateral on your income. Say that again.
A mortgage is simply a loan on your income secured by your property that you're purchasing. So people
hmm
think a mortgage, obviously, it's a loan because you're paying back the loan to the bank that they gave you to buy this house, but it's secured by your income. Well, it's a loan on your income. So your current income for the past 2 years, because mortgages only go back to verify it, it only takes 2 years of credentials. Those 2 years when you could prove that you were making that income, that's when the bank will extend the money to you to
hmm
purchase it. But the house is just collateral. It's not like the bank never owned the property. The bank never got involved. They don't sell houses. They gave you a
hmm
loan based on your income, and your house is the collateral that secured that loan.
hmm
That's it. Simple.
Okay, ladies and
So
gentlemen, sorry, but he just explained to you how money is created. Continue.
So in 2008, what was happening from 2003? people were able to just go get property without having to show that they could afford it. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody, who was, no knock on their income, but if they're making 75,000, they didn't even have to show an ID. They could show like they're making money, and they'll get this loan on this house. The debt to income ratio wasn't really taken into effect. They have 4 or 5 properties that they can't maintain, but the bank is just gonna, because what they were doing was credit swaps. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, they were packaging these bad loans that were, it was advantageous to the bank because these loans were getting sold on the secondary market anyway. So if the loan went into default, this one originator already got paid. They already walked
Mm-hmm.
away. They're getting fat. But basically, it's at such a high interest rate that if the loan doesn't default, then the person or the bank that bought it on the secondary market, they're still getting fat too, because it's like they're still making money, and they're making money with more interest on the top of it because it's
Mm-hmm.
a riskier loan. So eventually the bubble burst, and that's what led to 2008.
Got you. And it's funny, like you're talking about like the credit swaps, and I remember reading about it, and it was saying how you have your what is it, like your rating system ABC or
Triple
something
A,
like that.
right?
Yeah. Oh
Triple A.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
AAA. So you had your different rating systems, and they were just pretty much
Saying
like
everything was
if
Triple A,
you knew
right?
somebody, this is how I kind of understand it. Is like if somebody, for instance, makes 6 figures, that to income ratio, like they barely have any debt or no debt whatsoever, they're probably gonna be a triple A because you know they're gonna pay that money back.
Right.
Whereas like somebody, because there's
Or the
realtors out
C.
here, yeah, there's realtors out here selling houses. I see it all the time here in Atlanta. Like when I used to network all the time, there'll be realtors out here. Their main thing is as long as you can get approved, we're selling you the house. But the financial side of me is just like, yo, you can't afford this.
Right.
Like you don't have any savings, any emergency funds. Something happens to you, you're losing the house, which you just created more money for that bank. So now they can turn around and resell that house by just making the money that you threw away for a little bit, and now you're out on the street. But anyways, but the funny part about like when I was reading, I think it was like in one of Robert Kiyosaki's books,
Mm-hmm.
Unfair Advantage, and he was talking about how Warren Buffett, he was like the richest man in the like the richest trader in the world, one of the richest men in the world. He owned these companies, so he's like, how could you really call yourself the richest man in the world? You kind of created this, and I don't know. It's a whole different ball game because you got government bailouts and like all of that stuff. But it's just interesting how 2008 happened. But anyway, so 2008 happened, but then 2011, you knew that happened, but yet all you had to do was see a check, pretty much a proven income, and you was like, "Yo, I want to get into this." Pretty much, right?
Right. Right. Because so after 2011, well, when I started, I was just doing rentals in Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
and the market kind of subsided a little bit. But the thing about New York real estate in general, it'll never depreciate. There's always going to be a lot of demand. There's always going to be, the major industries are here, and they're not going to ever leave. Even with COVID, we kind of saw a
Mm-hmm.
reduction in terms of a lot of people migrating from the city. But if you look today, the city's pretty much back, even though people aren't really working in offices and commercial might have taken a dip. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
starting to see commercial buildings reposition themselves and become condo units. And, you know, there's a market, obviously the high end of the market always has, um, it falls short of expectations sometimes, like the 25 million, the $50 million projects, which, they'll still make a return on their investment, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's not absorbent like they thought, or exorbitant. Is still significant in terms of like money is gonna be here. Like people
Mm-hmm.
will take the New York is such a densely populated area that it's not enough land for the demand or many
Mm-hmm.
people that want to be here.
Got you. And it's weird because I feel like that's what Atlanta is turning into. I remember when I first moved here, they were calling it baby New York, but
Right,
now if you start seeing around, 'cause, like as you get closer to the city, it's a lot harder to find land, and they're building up townhome communities, condo communities a lot more because more people are moving here
right.
versus just individual houses. But
Right.
anyway, so with with you becoming a broker, you mentioned, let's go back a little bit. You mentioned at first you started off with rentals. Now I know rentals in New York are completely different than anywhere else because I think you have to have a realtor in order to find a rental. Can you explain that process a little bit?
You don't necessarily have to have a realtor, but it's a lot easier because there's over 40,000 rental buildings, high-end rental buildings in New York. So
Mm-hmm.
just dealing with that number of anything is difficult for somebody who's not really enmeshed in it daily. And then with
Mm-hmm.
moving, um, as far as rental wise, this is not somewhere where you're going to be long term. So a lot of the times it's a very anxious and nerve wracking process. So it's best to work with a broker. So that's where
Mm-hmm.
the demand for our services comes in, because it's more or less like people can't handle the emotion of you know
Mm-hmm.
applying for an apartment, getting denied, and not knowing what to do, not knowing what credentials they need to bring. So our job, or my job back then, because I don't really dabble in rentals anymore per se. I'll do a
Mm-hmm.
few, but I don't. Our job is to keep the client or the prospective tenant organized, paperwork wise, make sure everything is looking good.
Mm-hmm.
As far as bank statements, neat, concise, and then we present those to the landlords. So what was happening was, in 2011, especially with rentals being so hot, we were able to like start charging people 15% of the yearly rent, and that was like a big deal because
The people that
if you
was renting the place, they paid the 15%.
right, so if you think
Okay.
about it, if somebody is purchasing an apartment, or purchasing, if somebody is renting an apartment for 3 grand, and the 15% fee, you're looking at like 4,400 as my fee, just my fee. An apartment is
Mm.
$3,000. So you do three of those a month, on the low end, and that's 12 grand. So
Mm.
at that time, it was like serious money, and
Wow.
that's what really made me want to get into it, because I was thinking like, if I could do three rentals, of course, in practice, it's not as simple as it is in theory,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it was still the opportunity to make a lot of money.
Okay. So I know in Atlanta we have, you had the MLS where there's realtors on there, and I'm pretty sure that they get out, like, people rent from them, but
Right.
and you just told me kind of like the benefits of renting or like hiring someone in New York. Now with this 15% fee, was it kind of like a monthly passive income while they were there, or was it all upfront?
Yeah, all one time. So it was a one
Nice.
time fee, right? So if we find an apartment, you move forward, leases is executed and everything, then you pay that 15% one time, and then you don't have
Mm.
to. Let's say if you renewed your lease the next year, obviously you don't owe me a fee because the job
Okay.
was already done. So it wasn't. That was another thing. It wasn't passive income either. So it was still like a job, pretty much. It was a
Mm.
9 to 5 without the structure of a quote unquote boss telling you to come in and work. But if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't work, you didn't make money. You know.
Yeah, I mean, traditional sales off of commission. I think that's the part most people. It's funny, like people get into real estate, but like I don't like sales. I'm just like, well, how do you expect to like
Expect to make money and make a
expect?
living.
Well, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't like sales. Like you got to understand sales unless you got a lot of money to be able to find other people that can sell for you and close for you, because that's the whole process of sales. So it's just interesting. So when you get your new agents, do you throw them straight into to rentals? I know a lot of that's how it's easier for a lot of realtors to kind of get their start is through rentals or
Well,
something.
me personally, I don't have like a super big team. So
Mm,
everybody that I work with, I pretty much take them with me on like the day to day and show them what I'm doing.
mm-hmm.
Um, there is a capacity to make money in real estate if you don't like sales as well.
Okay.
But
You
for the
gotta
most
say like
part,
what?
um, I mean, if you so day to day, like dealing with the public. so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you still have to understand the art of negotiation and everything like that. But like you alluded to, if you're working on a team, then you don't necessarily have to be the top salesperson. You can be
Mm-hmm.
the clerical or the back end, or you know what I mean. There's a opportunity for you to make money, and that's what I kind of bring
Mm.
to the team. Like, because I wasn't the best at selling myself. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
I'm more or less based like
And you mentioned that you don't have a big team. So they go with you,
right,
and then
and
you say you're not
I'm
the
not
best
the
at selling yourself.
right. Yeah, I'm not the best at. I'm not gonna say I'm not the best, but I don't prefer to like uh, have to sell. I rather show you the product, and if you want the product, and it makes sense for the both of us to make this deal happen. That's the frequency I like to vibrate on.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
But it is sales at the end of the day. It is sales. I'm not pitching anything. I'm not trying to convince you to buy anything. If this works for you, then we
Mm-hmm.
make it work.
Yeah, I know. Like my level of studying when it comes to sales has just always been professional salespeople. They more so educate you versus the typical
Entice you
like
to buy,
the
right?
non-professional salesperson where they're pushing you, pushing you, pushing you. Granted, professional salespeople, you got to educate person and make sure that it is the a decision for them. Like we all, well, a lot of us seen Wolf of Wall Street, and dude be like, sell me this pen, and he'd be like, you need something to write with, and he'd be like, boom, I sold you the pen. And it's just like, one, it's not that simple, and then it's more
Right,
questions to go into. It's just
right.
like, okay, here's a pen. um what is it, like the different perspectives, like here's a pen. You may not.
Is it blue? You want black ink?
You exactly, like, do you need a special type of ink? Do you really need to write something, like do you really, I guess the main thing is, do you really need this pen? Because everybody is not going to need this
right,
pen. Just because I got a pen and I can sell it, it may not benefit me at the end of the day. It may benefit you because this may be a special color. At
right,
the end of the day, you need something to immediately write down. So here, since you only got red ink and you got to sign this legal document, I'll sell you this pen. Boom. This person need it versus, hey, you chilling at the restaurant, like, hey, I got a pen. Like, I don't need it right now. I'm eating. So anyway, so that
right,
really goes down to sales. And like
right.
when it came to me getting my house, buy my house, my realtor, when she did, like you said, having a team, she had one of her guys. I'm assuming he was newer. He would show me all the different houses. Yeah, he would
Show
show
you.
it to me. I would look at everything. He'd be like, "Here, check this out." Boom, boom. I ask questions, or he'd be like, "I better get that question answered." Right. So he's presenting for me, and then at the end, he gave her the
Right,
info. I gave her the info. I was like, yeah, I like it, or nah, I don't like it. She did whatever she did. And I was like, I like this house. Then what her job was is to turn around, use whatever information I gave her and close it. So I was just like, so to
right.
your point is that everybody has different strengths. And I think that's the one thing new entrepreneurs forget is that you do need a team. And then if you have a strong team, then everybody could play their different parts, right? So anyways, you as a broker,
Absolutely.
tell me about your um producing experience. Like, what was your market, and then what was the transition into becoming a broker? Like, how did that process work?
So where I kind of delved from rentals, I started to get involved in short sales and pre
Mm-hmm.
foreclosures, and that was a real niche, and that was like what I was good at because it was an emotional transaction, and it was like still residue from 2008 and 2010. So we were dealing. This was like 2014, 2015 when I got fully
Mm-hmm.
enmeshed in it. It was a day-to-day process. We making calls, we going and visiting people whose numbers and names come up on the list pendants. We were doing that, and that was like that's where I learned pretty much the ins and outs and how to really simplify the real estate game. I didn't want to overcomplicate it because there's so many different ways you can go, but pre foreclosures was like my main
Mm-hmm.
bread and butter. So then we started to delve into because that's the process of negotiating with the bank in order to initiate a
Mm-hmm.
short sale. So I got into short sales, and that was like where I took
Okay. Can
off.
you explain short sale a little bit? Because I've heard it, but I still don't really know what a short sale is.
Definitely. So a short sale is commenced when your house, the property
Mm-hmm.
value, is worth less than what the mortgage is worth or valued at. So if you purchase your property for 300,000, the bank extended you the loan. For numbers' sake, I'm not going to overcomplicate this thing, but with FHA loans, you only have to deposit. You have to put down the 3.5%
Mm-hmm.
deposit. So you have 96.5% that you got to pay the
Mm-hmm.
bank back with mortgage insurance, because this is a riskier loan for the bank. So they're going to put insurance on top of it. And like you said, back in the day, realtors were just, and mortgage brokers and everybody, they were just trying to get the person qualified. As long as you were qualified, they didn't really care if you would be able to sustain and maintain the payments and keep your house. So dealing with that, a lot of the mortgages got overinflated and went underwater. So basically, a short sale is when your property is valued at less than what the mortgage is valued at. We negotiate with the bank to get it to a number slightly lower. That way, we can sell it, and the bank can actually recoup some profit. It's not necessarily what they expected, but at least they're not walking away with
Okay.
zero. And then the person that we initiate the short sale for can purchase another property down the
Mm-hmm.
line instead of having to go on a default or foreclosure or bankruptcy in order to
Mm.
deal with it. So
Now, do a lot of people?
that's in the in the,
Nah,
in
I
the
get it. So, do a lot of people? Because I do know that there's foreclosure. I guess two questions. So, first question is, when you initiate this foreclosure, do sometimes the people that selling a house have to come out of their pocket, or is that the point of the foreclosure? Is hoping that they don't have to come out of pocket and just be clear.
that's right. That's the point of it. So they actually get moving assistance
Mm-hmm.
with the bank if they negotiate the short sale, depending on the original terms of the loan. But basically, we're sort of liquidating that debt and whatever's owed. So if they owed like a water bill or something like that, then that would get situated first, taxes, and then it's not like they're walking away with any profit. They can get some assistance to relocation assistance, but it's not like they're selling their house for profit. They're basically starting with a clean slate, and that's the
Okay.
point of
So
it.
when it comes like,
So they don't ever have to come out of
oh, I'm sorry.
pocket.
So when it comes like
Sorry.
short sale, do just people not know about it, and that's how they go straight into foreclosures, or is it only certain things
Mhm.
that will qualify?
Sometimes a lot of people aren't really privy to the resources that's
Mm-hmm.
available to them, and that's the lack of education in our community. Because sometimes, and especially with dealing with a foreclosure, is such a nerve wracking and unpleasant experience. You start to doubt yourself. You start to feel like you're inadequate. It's a very emotional transaction that we're doing. So basically, some people just don't
Mm-hmm.
care, really. I've seen people in foreclosure, as long as, especially in New York, you can avoid foreclosures for however long you need. You know what I mean? I've seen somebody with a property since 2004, he's been in foreclosure in Brooklyn. So, as long as you are willing to put up a fight with the banks, most
Mm-hmm.
people aren't. Most people are just willing to be like, look, I don't have time to deal with this. I was cheated. I was robbed. I was duped. I was
Mm-hmm.
bamboozled. You know what I'm saying? It's always like, but that was what we brought to the game. Like we educated the client, let them know like this isn't the last time you'll be able to purchase a house, and we really empathize with them and let them know like, look, we're here to help you. We got your best interest at heart. And I think that's what made the team that I was working with at that time, that's what made us so successful, because we were helping our people. It was bigger than money for us. It was more of a mission for us to like really educate the community and let them know, you know that it's not the end all be all dealing
Okay.
with this.
Now, fast forward, you have foreclosures, and then you have short sales. Then we have 2022, where I don't know what it's like in New York, but I'm assuming it's crazier than here in Atlanta. Rental prices have went up, housing prices have went up, and I'm assuming, like, I know in Atlanta, realtors are gonna say, and it could be true. I don't know. This is not my industry, but they're like, prices been cheap for so long that these prices are pretty much gonna be here. Like, they're here to say so. With people buying houses right now, they're not really buying it for it being too expensive. Like, they're buying it at a good price, right? But then the market could
Right.
turn around. People lose houses, economy crash, whatever. Now they have the ability to short, right,
Discounts.
to short sell and different things like that. So, what is like the market right now in New York, and what are your thoughts on where we're at right now as far as with it being a seller's market, and if there's benefits to the consumer?
So ultimately, I think that we are, because there were a lot of mandates and the word I'm looking for, obviously, it's been everywhere. I
No, it's
just
fine.
right now I can't. But a lot of the foreclosures were paused because of the damn, it's early. It's too early for me. But anyway, um so
Basically,
once these are
the
lifted,
COVID
once these mandates
mandates
are
from, okay, government.
right, right. Due to COVID, a lot of the evictions and everything,
Mm-hmm.
moratorium, sorry, eviction moratoriums, and the banks can't pursue any foreclosures and whatnot. So when those are lifted, and the banks, because right now, even with evictions in New York, we had something called ERAP, which is Emergency Rental
Mm-hmm.
Assistance Program. They were paying the landlords from a city budget, which they opened it up for 3 months. They had to close it, you know what I mean? Because there was so many people that were affected by COVID and just couldn't afford to
Mm-hmm.
pay their rent, you know? So once all of these moratoriums are lifted and the banks can pursue the people in foreclosure, it's going to be like a all out free fall. I believe that, like you said, with because it's all correlated, right? Like basically interest rates, and that not that they play too big of a factor in it, but basically when you raise interest rates and you have low bond yields, you're in
Mm-hmm.
a recession. That's like the blank, like the even easy way to know you're in a recession. Interest rates are high and bond yields are low, which is what we're dealing with right now. So when interest rates are high, there's going to be less buyers in the market because less people can afford the properties. Interest rates being high and the market being overinflated is going to be like there's
Mm-hmm.
no demand, you know. So one of the two are going to have to drop. Like either the prices is going to have to fall, or interest rates have to fall, which we don't see
Mm-hmm.
anytime soon. They're trying to raise them. They'll probably keep them steady, but as far as reducing them again, it's not gonna. So, with sellers right now, I think this is the best time to take advantage before the carnage starts. And in New York, you have a lot of people selling their
Mm-hmm.
property, a lot, and taking advantage of the overinflated market because just in the last 2 years, we've seen appreciation go upwards of like 15, 20%,
Mm-hmm.
So if your property was worth 450 in 2011, 2012, you probably got about an extra
Mm-hmm.
450 in equity. Like now you're at 900. So it makes sense for you to
Yeah.
sell, because we don't know what the future is going to hold. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are cashing their chips in, and I don't blame them. And getting ready. If I were them and I own property, I would do that same thing. Because eventually, let's say next year, 2023, 2024, we're going to see prices have to reduce
Mm-hmm.
tremendously. But in New York, it's always an appreciating market, so you're not gonna see a big boom to where like 30% of the market is undervalued. You know what I mean? It's gonna start happening in little pockets, and those who are privy or who have the access to the funds and the capital, they're gonna be able to make those
Got
types
you.
of moves.
But what's crazy is y'all say that, and then I guess the numbers in me is just like, okay, like I could sell my house right now, right? Or just people that's selling a house. Yeah, you sell it, you cash out, but then you still gotta either go rent somewhere high or you
Rent,
gotta pay a higher
right?
mortgage. So it's just like, okay, the trade off is you getting all this money cash, depending on how much you're gonna get from this house, but you're still putting yourself in the higher end of everything.
Because think about it, right? I
I
agree with you,
want to hear
and
different
to someone,
perspective.
to someone for sure. Let's say let's say you got. I mean, obviously, if you have an asset like your home and it's your primary residence, and then I wouldn't
Hmm.
liquidate it, right? But if you let just give the example, if you did have a property and you already got you
Hmm.
doubled the equity pretty much, that's like an exit strategy
Yeah.
anyway because you didn't expect to and then let's say you rent at 2,500 for a
Good
year,
point.
right? Give or take. That's only 20 something
Yeah.
grand out of the 900,000. Well, let's say the 450,000 you just got. If you're smart with your money, you budgeted correctly. Now you got a nest egg. You got enough of a down
Hmm.
payment. You could do a 20%, on something a little, maybe at the same price or slightly below. That's a little bit more
Hmm.
updated. You know what I mean? So it's just like you're gonna keep
Good
playing the
point. Good
game.
point.
Even if you were to refi, it's the same
Gosh.
same
Okay. So
principle.
yeah, good point. So more of the story. If you selling on a high, you liquidate, get 100, 200,000. You rent from somebody else. They get them paid as soon as the market recorrect. The market goes down. You buy a house back at discount. You put yourself back in a
You,
position because like every 10 years or whatever the number is, inflation as it keeps going up, which is kind of crazy when you think of the value of the dollar, your house is just going to keep getting more.
right,
And then that's how I would say the average, unless you're a real estate investor, and that's another conversation, but the average person could potentially be putting themselves in a position towards being closer to retirement. It's pretty much in a nutshell.
right,
Okay,
right,
great.
100%.
So you as a broker, you mentioned multifamily. I know you're big into like business funding, business credit. Um, Tell me about how you walk people into getting this funding so that they can get into multifamily.
I always start. I like to work with millennial
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs. So if you own a business or you are thinking about getting in a business or running a business of your own, I always encourage them to just get the basic fundamentals down so you can receive funding, which is your EIN, LLC, and your business bank account. You start with that, super easy. I also give them a trick. I don't know if I
Go
should be
ahead,
saying
say it because
this
it's
on
probably already been said.
air, but right, for sure. I always encourage them, no matter where they are financially. Let's say, you got $500. This is the only $500 you
Mm-hmm.
got to your name. That means you just gonna have to do a little bit more sweat equity, right? Once you have your business bank account established, you take that $500 and you just keep recycling it in your
Mm-hmm.
bank account. Take it out, put it back. Take it out, put it back. Take it out, put it back.
Mm,
Get to at least $10,000 worth of withdrawals and deposits in your account. So, the way business bank accounts work, beginning of the month, you get your statement, uh, starting balance, deposits and withdrawals, ending balance. As long as you have some activity you could show, you could generate income, but you just can't maintain it and you need more money to expand, you show $10,000 in your bank account every month. It don't matter if you started with 250, you ended with 100. As long as you got $10,000 or more, right, worth of deposits and withdrawals, you can even get creative, set up your own another bank account, sell it back and
mm-hmm.
forth. You know what I mean? Like this is what I'm doing. This is who I'm paying for services or whatever. You do that for 6 months, then you can either get an equity line of credit or you can get a business
Okay.
loan. You can take the business loan. Some business loans only specify in the purchase of residential property acquisitions, multifamilies. We look for those banks and work with them. Now you just got yourself into a multifamily. You got yourself an appreciating asset, right? You got yourself some tenants, some good Section 8 tenants, some good voucher program tenants. That money is coming every
Mm-hmm.
month. So you pretty much paying back this loan with this income, and you have an appreciating asset
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day. So as your asset is growing, right, equity is building in it. You paying back this loan, right? So you building your credit, and you got an appreciating asset. The tenants are pretty much handling your rent. It's like we should all do this more, but a lot of people is scared, skeptical, or
Mm-hmm.
not serious. You know what I mean? And that's it's so simple in theory, right? It's so simple for us to do this. Like, if you don't have any money, what is it to you to go to the ATM every day, twice a day, take the money out, hour later put it in, take it out, put it in.
For 6 months.
You know what I'm saying? For me,
Now, what
for
if you
six
just
months,
have the ten
it's
thousand or
different.
more and you just put it in an account and let it sit? Is it the same thing, or you still got to kind of have it going back and forth?
You still want to
Mm-hmm.
circulate it. You still want to have it. You still want to be able to show that you able to make. You could do the 10,000 at once. You know what I mean? If you really able to do it,
Mm-hmm.
you could sell it. I don't know if you can sell 10,000, but you could
Right.
do it. Twice a month. You know what I mean? Like, this is a $5,000 deposit. This is a $5,000 withdrawal. There's another $5,000 deposit. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Your business is able to make money, but you just aren't able to sustain it because you
okay.
need to grow. You know what I mean? And I also have business trade lines, so you slap one of those on your business profile, and now you golden. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's
Now, can you
really simple,
explain that to the audience?
but
Because I think it's the word of trade lanes is getting tossed around a lot, and I've even read
right.
places where they don't necessarily, like, there could be certain banks or certain companies where they don't necessarily identify the trade line, so it's maybe not beneficial in certain circumstances. So can you explain, I guess, like the trade
Right.
lines to people and what circumstances, I guess, is it beneficial in?
So all the trade line is well, the authorized user trade lines are a line of credit established by
Mm-hmm.
somebody else. Let's say I have an auto loan, and I put you on that, or sake, let's say a credit card. I had this credit card since 2011. I say I want Danny to have her own card. So you're an authorized user on that account. So normally how it works is you would get your own card, and pretty much the activity that we do is still going to reflect whether you use 100% of the balance or you use 0% of it. As long as it's reflecting positively or negatively, it's going to show up on yours. Some banks, unless it's a primary account, it doesn't weigh as heavily because it's not an account that a creditor established with you
Mm-hmm.
on your own. So that's what takes away from the validity of it. It's not that they don't use it. It's just that it's not a primary account. Like, somebody gave you authorization to use it. So it's still like you got training
Mm-hmm.
wheels on your bike. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You're not really riding your own bike. So once you get an authorized user trade line, you want to get a primary line, or you want to do it vice versa. You want to get a primary and supplement that with an authorized user trade line, because it looks like it's a more robust
Mm-hmm.
credit profile. You don't want to just have authorized user, authorized user, authorized user, because it's like, this doesn't make sense. If these people are willing to trust you with authorized user credit, why isn't an actual creditor willing to trust you with
Gotcha.
your own line of credit personally?
Okay.
You know what I mean? So that's just the hang up with trade lines. So you wanna have at least, you want it to be like a 3-to-2 ratio. If you do a 4-to-2 ratio, you want to have four primaries and two authorized user trade lines, because that's just going to increase or enhance your profile
Okay.
on your own. And then there's over 20 other bureaus that they're like reporting agencies, not bureaus. The credit bureaus is the major three
Mm-hmm.
that we know about, and business is four of them. But there's other reporting agencies that may affect your. So basically, like, there's a auto uh, auto if you wanted to get an
Mm-hmm.
auto loan, right? There's a whole reporting agency that'll just report your auto. You can have a 750
Right.
credit score, but you had a repo on your car history. If you're trying to get an auto loan, it's gonna negatively affect your auto,
Mm.
credit. You know what I mean? So it's I always encourage people, get a credit report. Don't just rely on Credit Karma
Right.
or free credit report. Get a full extensive credit report. See exactly what's on your report. See what's being reflected on there, and then that's when you start to really build because you know
Okay.
what's on
So
there.
you will have access to this trade line. Now I'm assuming, and I could be wrong because there's so many people out here offering trade line. I'm assuming that there's probably somewhere you can go and be like, hey, I could buy this trade line, but and then sell it to somebody else. Is there something like out there that exists? People aren't necessarily just sharing,
I have a
huh?
store. No, I have a whole store
Okay,
like that.
because I would
So
assume it's
I have an
not
online store.
yours,
So
your personal credit. It's probably
right,
got it. Because I'm
right.
like, everybody doing it. Everybody can't be using their own credit.
So I have a store. Basically, I was because these kind of really just got popular like
Mm,
2019. I was doing this in like 2017, helping people who had bad credit. Initially, I would put a trade line on it to help them get rentals, so that way when the landlords ran their credit report, they would see like, okay, they have, if they're coming from like a 650, they get an authorized user trade line, they can push them to 700, and sometimes the landlord would just see the score. But now it's a little bit more intense. They do entire background checks, criminal history, even though they don't deny you of your criminal history, but it's just they really do, they comb through. So back in 2018, I started to do it, and I was doing so much volume with the company I was working with. They reached out to me like, look, I always see the way I had to do it. You had to go into the bank, give a deposit, like that. A lot of tedious steps that the client, I would just make it easy for them. I would just tell them like, look, this is a trade line. This is what it's going to do. This is how much it's going to cost. Just give me the money. I'll go make the transaction happen for you or whatever. I had to go to the bank, and every time you make a deposit in a business bank account, you gotta leave your name, you gotta show your
mm,
ID. So that I was doing so many that they reached out to me like, yo, you want to set up your own store? I was like,
wow.
hell yeah. So I set up. So basically, it's like, all right, Danny, you got an American Express line you had for 10 years. It's in good standing. You've been paying it every month. Won't you sell that line to this company? We'll make sure we sell it for you, and then you can get a profit. So what I like to encourage my clients to do, my customers to do, once you have, let's say you get an authorized user, now you'll start to receive offers. Once you get your own primary, you could sell that line. The person won't receive a
Mm,
card though online. So with my store, you don't get access to that person's credit, that line of credit, but you still, it reflects positively on your account, on your
wow.
profile. So that's in a nutshell.
That's
That's how it
crazy.
works.
Okay. So we had this whole credit, we got the funding process. Now, with you being a broker, what is your process of getting these millennials to being able to outside of the business funding? I want to get a multifamily property now. 6 units, eight. I don't want the typical four. I want 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever. How are you gonna get me? How are you gonna walk me through that process?
So we assess where you are. Well, first, if you wanted to do it alone, we get you a
Mm-hmm.
pre-qualification letter. This is what you can afford, right? Like, we'll see exactly. Remember, a mortgage is just a loan on your income. So we'll see exactly where you stand. Maybe you can't, not you personally, but maybe the prospective person can afford a multifamily. It's just not what they could do. So I would recommend you go partner up, right? Like on the JV, basically, if you let's say for number's sake, if you can qualify, then we start to look in areas where the amount that was awarded or
Mm-hmm.
you know you will receive. We'll look in areas specifically where it priced at that point. So it's really simple. We start with a pre-qualification, assess where you are, debt to income ratio wise, and then we just get the ship
So what's
floating
the
from there.
difference between the commercial process that you'll run people through and the residential process?
Well, anything over 5 families is
Mm-hmm.
considered commercial. So you would have to. I always tell people to start with like a 1 to 4 because you can get FHA financing and then you can refinance at a later date, or you pull the equity out and then you can go get another
Mm-hmm.
property. So in the residential aspect of it, it's a lot easier. When dealing with commercial, you really you got to have more of a nest egg, or more cash
Mm-hmm.
heavy, and then we just assess the cap rate. So anything commercial is all about cap rates. How much money will you make? What's the expenses minus
Okay.
what you pay for it? So expenses and income, basically, we look at the purchase price. We look at the expenses minus the income, or the income minus expenses, and then that's what gives you
Mm-hmm.
your cap rate. And if your cap rate is sustainable, if you can, afford to make that purchase, that's
Now,
where
where
we
does
go.
the business funding come into effect when it comes to the commercial properties?
Um, Again, just getting yourself qualified to receive the business loan. So if you can get the if you can get approved for the purchase of the multifamily, right? They'll usually extend. They call it a HELOC, home equity line of credit. So you work with different lenders that'll give you that home equity line of credit, and then you can use that to make the purchase for the multifamily, for the
Mm-hmm.
commercial property. That makes sense. So that's like your down payment. They'll extend that, and then based upon the cap rate, that's how you'll be able to sustain that payment process, or purchase, paying for letting it
Okay.
pay itself off
So if I
pretty
have a
much.
$100,000 house, I mean not house, I want to buy this $100,000 multifamily apartment complex. I think it because I had another guy on here,
Right,
and I think he said you need about 30% down or something.
right.
So I
Hmm.
need 300,000. How much do I need? 300,000 of my own cash down, and would the funding just be the process of me getting the loan to finance the rest of it, or am I able to use funding at all
Right,
for the down payment as well?
exactly. So you're able to use the funding for the down payment. So if I get this correctly, you have the purchase price is three
Hmm.
hundred thousand.
No, it costs one
You
million
have 100,000.
for this example. 1 million for this
Okay,
example, and it says I need thirty
right.
percent down to buy this apartment complex.
And then the business funding is giving you 300,000 as a down payment,
So that's how it works. I mean, I
right?
don't know. I'm asking you. Is that how it
Right.
works? So
Yeah, yeah,
what
for
do I
sure.
have to come
That's
out
how
of
you
my
do it.
pocket
So you
with
take
then?
that's the beauty of it. It's an equity line of credit. All you had to do was get yourself qualified to where you can get this HELOC, home equity line of credit. So your business is basically going all off your
Mm.
business. Your business is able, when you're making a purchase with your business, you don't have to use none of your cash, right?
No, but you know it's crazy, and that's why I like having different people on here. And maybe I need to connect y'all because the other guy on here, I was asking him about that, and I don't know if he didn't know it or that's just not one of his processes. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's a level to this where you can just use business, but obviously you have to have your business credit established and history or something, all of that
Right.
before you can get in a position where your business is funded at full 300,000 is my guess, right?
Exactly. And it all goes by the cap rate. If you're able to, all right, so let's say the property is 1 million. The bank is willing to give you $300,000 to use as a down payment for any um, commercial property. As long as the numbers make sense and the cap rate is there, and it's pretty much like you'll be able to make the payments to back to the loan
Mm-hmm.
for the down payment, and continue to sustain the payments on the actual property. So the rest of 700,000 that you have to pay back, as long as the cap rate makes sense, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
no brainer. You know what I mean? You can use that down payment, that business line of credit that they extended to you, you utilize that as the down payment
Mm.
for the property.
So we're talking about cap rate. I decided to use this business funding. I'm buying me this apartment complex. I'm assuming like what the cap rate is, depending on how many, like, I don't know if it's 10. I'll say I only got 10 units. 9 people are already in there, so it's 90% occupied. So as long as I can prove with the loan that buying this $1 million property, it's 90% occupied to where these tenants are gonna pay majority of the rent, and I'm still gonna have this much left over, then I pretty much just found a good deal. Is that basically what you're saying?
I just did a deal like that literally a month ago. So one of my clients, he had about 450,000 in
Mm-hmm.
business credit that they were going to extend for the down payment of a property. We found like 4 houses in Jersey. We did the contracts to where, because each house was a different price. We did the contracts to where each house, well, they were going to extend 450, but like 100 to each property. So, you with loans, no bank is really going to extend any money on anything less than like 75,000. You know what
Wait,
I
you
mean? It doesn't
said,
make sense for them to have a
I'm sorry, say
30-year
it again.
loan.
You said,
Less than 75,000. So if a property costs less than
okay,
75,000,
got it.
probably not going to be able to get a mortgage on it. You know what I mean? Because it's not beneficial to the bank. Wait, they're not going to wait 30 years for 75,000 to be paid back. You know what I mean? So we had to reposition each property to where it would qualify for the loan funding amount. And he was able, no money out of his pocket, no cash at all, none of his own credit, business, did this, got the loan, extended it, we got the properties and made the deal happen. So, it's like you said, you referred to it in the beginning. It's all
Yeah.
about education. The more you know better, you do better, pretty
But
much.
so with the business credit, I guess even to get to 1 million now, it's gonna take some history and some movement and all of
Yeah,
that, and it's probably not going to be your first property that you're like, hey, this business credit is funding this much, right? You probably want to start
right.
small, is what I'm getting. You probably want to start small after you establish. Well,
Why?
I may be wrong. Let me just hear me out. What I'm thinking of what you're saying is that if I'm doing this 6 months, I'm probably not gonna have access to $1 million business credit. I'm probably gonna have access to, let's say, 500,000. I don't know. I don't know how it works, but I
Right,
only have
right,
access to five
right,
hundred
right,
thousand to where now I can only get maybe a smaller apartment complex for only up to 500,000 until I establish that, and then now that's added to my profile, to have where I have money coming in and going out. I'm showing business habits. Now over next, say, the next 6 months, I'll get 1 million. I mean, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that, but hypothetically speaking, I've
right.
established 1 million.
Close to it, yeah, for sure.
Or if I bring on another
Right.
partner and I
So
only have access to 500,000, and they doing the same thing for the next 6 months and they have 500,000, now we can go in that together. Is that basically what you're saying? Okay.
for sure, for sure, and again with the trade lines, like they have business trade lines, business credit trade lines. So where if you add uh, business credit trade line to your profile, you can enhance or speed up the
Mm-hmm.
process a little bit, and because it's almost like you're showing that you're able to responsibly handle this debt
Mm-hmm.
already. So even with credit card companies, the things that they look for, you can't have, let's say, $4,000 in credit, revolving credit, and expect to get a $20,000 credit card.
Yeah.
Don't make sense. They're not gonna do it. They'll probably grant you the 4,000, but until you can show you can responsibly sustain and maintain and pay 20,000, they're not gonna be the first
Right.
ones to risk that. So that's that's the importance of having the trade line, because now if you can show that somebody trusts you with 10,000, you can go apply for ten
Okay.
thousand on your own. receive that, then you can apply. Now you have
Mm-hmm.
20,000 altogether. Now I'll take the risk and go apply for a $15,000 credit card. Because they might give it to me because they see I can manage 20 already. So that's how you want to do it. You don't want to just jump out the window and
Got it.
you know.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So Brandon, the Brandon edition. I know you were mentioning that you do. So you're a broker, which means that if you're in New York and you
Mhm.
want to be an agent, you can go definitely through Brandon. But you mentioned that you do have a mentorship program and you do have some ebooks out. So can you kind of explain those and then how to kind of reach you just for more information after listening to this?
Absolutely. You can reach me on Instagram, the Brandon Edition, and link in my bio. It has the mentorship, 30-day intensive mentorship program. Um, 30-day intensive rather. We cover real estate, we cover trading. I call myself Mr. Everything because I like to dabble in everything and do a lot, but it's really structured at the end of the day. I also have a how to wholesale real estate ebook
Mm-hmm.
in my bio, and depending on which package that you purchase, we send out the leads to you. So we disperse whatever zip code you choose. If you choose the package where you get 200 leads a day, we'll send you 200 wholesale leads a day with their accurate phone numbers and how to reach them, and then you could make deals from home after you get the book.
Nice. That's amazing.
So yeah, at the brand. I'm sorry, at the Brandon Edition on Instagram and link in my
At the
bio.
Brandon edition. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, thank you
At the
so much
Brandon
for
Edition.
showing up. I think you provided a different perspective, especially just coming from New York alone. I know, like, that's like one of the real estate capitals right there. So definitely thank you for sharing your knowledge. Hopefully, we can bring you back with more questions, especially when this market recreate. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some more questions, or you're gonna learn some new stuff that you're like, "Hey, world, this is kind of what's going on." But again, I really appreciate you for your time. And everyone, again, this is Coach Danny Renee. This is the Millennial Network Podcast, where your net worth is your. I'm gonna get it one day. Where your network is your net worth. Gosh, Lee, and we are out of here. Peace.